I'm Mariquin. I'm 36 years old, and I clean other people's offices for a living. Last month I won $84 million. Not because I planned it. Not because I even wanted to play. One rainy night after work, the cashier at the corner store talked me into buying a lottery ticket so I could get half off some bread. I shoved it in my jacket pocket and forgot it existed. Weeks later, I found it while digging for loose change to buy a soda, and when I saw what it was worth, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even smile. I just thought, all right, time to finish the list. This is not a dream come true story. This is a payback story. When you're a night cleaner in a downtown office tower, you learn how to move like a shadow. No one wants to see you. Not really. They'll walk past without looking, or glance at you with that quick smile people give to strangers. They'll forget in 2 seconds. I work from 9 at night to 5 in the morning, vacuuming carpets, scrubbing toilets, wiping down desks that still smell faintly of someone's lunch. The pay is minimum wage. The hours break your body. By the end of my shift, my knees throb. My back feels like it's made of rusted hinges, and I smell like disinfectant no matter how many showers I take. That night had been one of the bad ones. The 15th floor men's bathroom looked like someone had thrown a frat party in it, vomit in the sink, toilet paper strewn across the floor, a stink that clung to my gloves. By the time I finished mopping, my stomach was growling so hard I felt lightheaded. It was pouring rain when I stepped outside. The cold cut right through my jacket, soaking my socks before I made it halfway to the bus stop. I ducked into Lenny's Quick Mart just to warm up for a minute and grab milk. I put a half-gallon of milk and a bag of day-old bread on the counter. Lenny glanced at the coins I spilled out of my pocket and said, "You're $1 short." I sighed. I didn't have another dollar. Not in my wallet, not in my pockets. "Tell you what," he said, picking up a slip of paper from the counter. "Buy a lottery quick pick for $1. Bread's half off. Brings you even." I didn't care about the lottery. I never bought tickets, seemed like a waste when you can barely afford groceries. But I just wanted to get home, so I muttered, "Fine," and handed him the last crumpled bill in my wallet. He slipped the ticket into my grocery bag, along with the receipt. I didn't even look at it. The weeks after that were the same as always. Work, home, sleep, repeat. If you can call it sleep. The pipes in my basement apartment bang like gunshots every time the upstairs neighbor turns on a tap, and the smell of damp never leaves. My rent was late again, but that was nothing new. I forgot about the ticket entirely. Then came that Tuesday night. I was in the break room at work, digging through my jacket for coins to get a soda from the vending machine. My fingers brushed something stiff and folded. I pulled it out and saw the logo, Atlantic Lottery. I almost tossed it. But something made me pull out my phone and type in the numbers. The Wi-Fi was slow, the overhead light flickered, and my hands still smelled faintly of bleach. The screen loaded. Jackpot winner. $84 million. I just stared at it. I didn't shout. I didn't run to tell anyone. I just sat there in that ugly plastic chair, hearing the hum of the vending machine and the clock ticking on the wall. My heart wasn't racing. My hands weren't shaking. It was quiet inside me. And in that quiet faces started appearing in my mind. My sister, rolling her eyes when I asked for a loan. "You should manage your money better." My mother, saying, "I can't help. I've got my own problems." My brother laughing, "You're not good with cash, Mara." I remembered the times I skipped meals so someone else could eat. The times I covered bills, rent, even medical expenses, and never saw a cent back. And the times I needed help and got nothing but excuses or lectures. That slip of paper in my hand wasn't just money. It was power. And I knew exactly how I was going to use it. Not to buy a mansion, not to travel the world, to finish the list, the one I've been carrying in my head for years. Every name, every refusal, every moment I stood alone. That night, I put the ticket back in my pocket, finished my shift, and went home without telling a soul. Because when I told them something, it wouldn't be what they were expecting. Not even close. The night after Aunt Joni left, I couldn't stop thinking about her face when she handed me that envelope. She didn't hesitate. She didn't ask for proof. She didn't try to make it a lesson. She just gave me what she had and said it wasn't much, when I knew damn well it was almost everything. $3,000. That's more than some of the people on my ledger have given me in my entire life combined. And they could afford it 10 times over. Joni is 65, a widow for the past 11 years. She used to work as a cleaner in a small hotel before her arthritis got too bad, and now she lives on a pension that barely covers her bills. Her apartment is on the top floor of an old building with no elevator. The hallway smells faintly of boiled cabbage from the neighbor across the hall, and she still has the same floral couch she bought back in the early 90s. I went to see her 2 days after she came to me. I brought a bag of groceries under the excuse that I had extras. She laughed when she saw the size of the bag and said, "You don't have to feed me, Mara." But I did. Not because she asked for it, but because she was the one person in my family who had proven she would be there if I fell. That put her in rare company, a category of one. Over tea at her kitchen table, I asked her why she didn't even think twice before bringing me the money. She sipped slowly before answering. Because when someone you love needs help, you help them, even if it's not easy. I've been where you are. I know what it's like when people vanish on you. She didn't elaborate, but the look in her eyes told me she'd had her own version of my ledger once. We sat in silence for a few minutes, just the sound of the kettle hissing faintly on the stove. Then she leaned forward and said, "You've always been the one who checked on me without wanting anything in return. That matters." Her words stuck with me. They also sharpened my resolve. Joni was going to be safe, more than safe. She was going to be taken care of for the rest of her life, even if she never knew the scale of what I was doing. But I still had 13 names left in my ledger. 13 people who had failed the first test. And one test wasn't enough. Money is easy to say no to when you can pretend you don't have it. But time, effort, that's different. People like my family value their time even more than their wallets. That was going to be my second measure, the effort test. The plan was simple. Over the next month, I'd ask each of them for help that didn't involve handing over cash. Rides to medical appointments, across town. Help moving heavy boxes. Picking up groceries for me because I couldn't carry them with my injury. Nothing that would cost them more than gas or an afternoon. I started small. My mother was first. I told her I had a dental follow-up and the buses weren't running to the clinic. Could she drive me there? She sighed into the phone and said, "Oh, Mara, I've got too much going on this week. Maybe next month." I thanked her and wrote her refusal down in the ledger. Next was Kelly, my sister. I called her one Saturday morning and told her I needed help lifting some furniture I was selling to pay my bills. She said she and her husband were swamped with the kids' activities and couldn't spare an hour. I didn't bother asking her husband directly, he'd just echo her anyway. Another refusal recorded. Tom, my brother, was worse. I texted him that I had a physiotherapy appointment for my shoulder injury and needed a ride home. He replied 3 hours later, "Busy. Ask someone else." Cousin Janine got a call. I asked if she could pick up some groceries for me on her way home from work, told her I'd pay her back. She said she didn't have time to deal with parking downtown and suggested I try a grocery delivery app. Uncle Rob? I asked if he could help me carry a sofa down 2 flights of stairs. He actually laughed. "Not with my back. You're on your own, kid." Aunt Marie claimed she was too tired after work to help me move a few boxes. Cousin Blake said he had plans when I asked him to pick me up from the clinic after my procedure. Linda made an excuse about bad knees when I asked her to bring me some paperwork from the library. One by one, the ledger filled again. The same names, the same pattern, all except one. Joni. She didn't just say yes, she showed up early every time. She drove me to appointments without asking questions, helped me carry groceries into my apartment, and even offered to stay the night once when she thought I might be in pain. She never once made me feel like I was a burden. By the end of the month, my ledger had two clear sections, perpected, with one name in it, and the rest, 13 people who had proven twice, in two different ways, that they wouldn't lift a finger for me unless there was something in it for them. And that's when I knew the dinner was next. The reckoning, the part they'd never see coming. When the last refusal was written down and the ledger sat thick with names, I closed it for the final time. The pen marks were dark and deliberate, the ink pressing so deep it left indentations on the pages underneath. Every excuse, every laugh, every polite brush-off was there, word for word. And as I looked at those pages, I felt no sadness. Just certainty. The dinner was going to be my way of ending it. Not just the giving or the taking, the whole damn cycle. No more being the family fallback. No more phone calls, only when someone needed bailing out. I was going to cut the cord clean, and I wanted them all in the same room when I did it. I rented a private dining room at a mid-range restaurant, nice enough to make it feel like an occasion, not so fancy they'd suspect anything unusual. I booked it for a Saturday night, gave the manager a head count of 14, and paid in cash. Then I sent out the invitations. Not cards. I knew my family would treat those like junk mail. I called each one personally, told them I wanted to thank them for their support during a really rough time. I let my voice break a little, just enough to make them believe I was emotional about it. Almost all of them sounded pleased with themselves, like they'd actually been helpful. Only Joni asked, "Are you sure you can afford this, love?" I told her not to worry, which was the truth, though not in the way she thought. In the days leading up to it, I had the envelopes made, thick cream paper with each name printed on the front in gold lettering. Inside, I placed 2 sheets of paper for 13 of them. The first sheet was a transcript of what they'd said to me when I asked for money. The second was their refusal or excuse during the effort test. Beneath those, in bold type, I printed one line, "When I had nothing, this is what you gave me. Now that I have everything, this is all you will get." Joni's envelope was different. Inside was the deed to a lakeside house I'd purchased in her name, and the legal paperwork for a trust fund that would give her a comfortable monthly income for the rest of her life. No conditions, no strings. The night of the dinner, I arrived early. The restaurant staff had set the table in a long rectangle, white tablecloth, candles, and a small envelope at each place setting. I placed Joni's envelope at the seat to my right. I stood for a moment looking at them all lined up, 13 tiny bombs, one quiet gift. They arrived in 2s and 3s, dressed better than they ever dressed for family gatherings, probably expecting some kind of handout or reunion vibe. There were smiles, hugs, the kind of small talk that feels like chewing dry bread. I could feel their eyes scanning me. My clothes, my hair, searching for signs of whether I was doing better or worse since we last spoke. When everyone was seated, I stayed standing. I cleared my throat and said, "First, I want to thank you all for coming. It means a lot that you'd make the time." That earned a few nods, some polite smiles. "You all know I've been through a rough patch. I lost my job. I was behind on rent, and I had some medical issues. It was hard." I paused, looking down at the table like I was gathering myself. "But it taught me something important. It taught me who's really there when it matters." A ripple of discomfort passed around the table. A couple of them shifted in their chairs. "That's why I invited you here tonight," I continued. "Because I think you all deserve to see exactly what you gave me when I needed you most." I gestured to the envelopes. "Go ahead, open them." The sound of tearing paper filled the room. I watched their faces change, curiosity, confusion, then the slow creep of realization. I saw my mother's lips tighten as she read her own words back to herself. My brother's jaw clenched. My cousin Janine's cheeks flushed red. Uncle Rob leaned back in his chair, muttering, "What the hell is this?" One by one, their eyes lifted to me. Anger, embarrassment. Some looked away entirely. No one spoke at first. Joni had opened hers quietly, and when she saw the deed, her eyes went wide. "Mara," she whispered. "That," I said, pointing to her envelope, "is what you give to someone who's there when you have nothing to offer them but yourself." Then I turned to the rest of the table. "The rest of you, you gave me nothing. And now, that's exactly what you'll get in return. Forever." The air went cold. My mother started to say something, but I raised a hand and she stopped. "This isn't about guilt. I'm not asking for apologies. I'm telling you that we're done. I have no interest in playing the family bank. The helper, the last resort, those days are over." Aunt Marie muttered something about being dramatic. My brother scoffed. Janine pushed her chair back and stood up, muttering about wasting her time. A few of them glared at me. I just sat down, picked up my fork, and began cutting into my steak. They left in clumps. Some right away, others lingering just long enough to pretend they weren't rattled. Only Joni stayed. She placed her hand over mine and said quietly, "You didn't have to do this for me." "I know," I said, "but I wanted to." When we walked out together into the night, the rest of them were already gone. The ledger was closed. The account was settled, and I'd never felt lighter. The night of the dinner, when I walked out of the restaurant with Joni at my side, the air felt different, lighter, sharper, cleaner. It wasn't just that I'd said my piece. It was that I'd said it in front of every single person who needed to hear it. There was no way to twist it, no way to pretend they didn't understand. I'd left them with their own words, written in black and white, and that was going to stick harder than anything I could have shouted. But it wasn't over. Cutting them out was one thing. Letting them walk away thinking they'd just been told off was another. No, I wasn't done. My revenge wasn't loud or violent. It wasn't even obvious. It was going to be quiet, patient and permanent, the kind you can't point to, but you can feel, like a draft in a sealed room. The first step was to vanish. I changed my phone number, closed my old email account, and told Joni the new ways to reach me. Everyone else? They could scream into the void for all I cared. I sold my basement apartment for cash to an investor who planned to gut it for rentals and moved into a secluded lakeside house under a different name. To the outside world, Mara Quinn simply stopped existing. Then came the second step, the freeze-out. My family lives in a small enough area that connections overlap. Cousins know people at banks, uncles know contractors. My mother knows just about every busybody in her neighborhood. I started there. Cousin Blake had applied for a loan to start his own side business. Through a lawyer friend, I bought into the property company handling the space he wanted to rent. The application got lost twice before the landlord decided to go with a more reliable tenant. Janine, the cousin who turned me down so she could save for Italy, worked at a marketing agency. I quietly hired a competing firm for a project I'd funded under my trust, then made sure the agency she worked for lost another bid. That meant 2 major clients gone in 6 months. Her hours got cut. She posted about hard times online. I smiled and scrolled on. My brother Tom bragged about creative taxes at family gatherings. I made an anonymous call to the right department, providing just enough detail to trigger an audit. He had nothing solid to pin it on, but it drained him dry in fees and stress. Aunt Marie had been flirting with the idea of flipping houses. I made sure she never got the financing by quietly buying up the 2 properties she had her eye on. She never even knew who outbid her. Just that it happened fast, in cash. My mother, I didn't touch directly. Her punishment was different. She thrived on being the family hub, the one who knew everything before anyone else. I took that away. Every scrap of news she might have gotten about me went through Joni, and Joni knew how to say nothing without sounding suspicious. My mother had to hear from neighbors that they heard I was doing fine, but she couldn't confirm a single detail. That drove her mad. Meanwhile, Joni's life bloomed quietly. The trust I'd set up sent her a comfortable monthly deposit. She didn't know the amount was drawn from an account that could fund her for the next 50 years if she lived that long. She just knew she didn't have to check price tags at the grocery store anymore. I had her old apartment, renovated top to bottom, new flooring, fresh paint, everything fixed, while she stayed at the lakeside cottage I'd given her. She called it a miracle. I called it balance. Seasons changed. Months passed. I never reached out to the 13 again, and they never got close enough to reach me. Some tried through social media, friend requests from fake accounts, vague "how are you" messages. I ignored them all. By winter, word had gotten around that I was keeping to myself and probably still struggling. I didn't bother correcting them. Let them think I was scraping by, invisible and unimportant. Let them live with the choice they'd made when they thought I had nothing. That was the sweetest part of it, knowing they'd spend years wondering what could have been if they'd just said yes, and knowing I'd never give them a chance to find out. A year can pass quietly if you decide to live it that way. Mine did. By the time 12 months had rolled around since that dinner, the ledger was no longer on my kitchen table. It was in the back of a drawer, under a stack of old utility bills and expired insurance papers. I hadn't opened it in months. Not because I'd forgotten, but because it had done its job. Every name in it was settled. The lake house I now called home sat well off the main road, down a gravel drive lined with birch trees. No one just dropped by here. Most days were silent except for the wind in the branches and the occasional loon calling out over the water. I didn't miss the city noise. I didn't miss the smell of bleach on my hands. I didn't miss cleaning up other people's messes. Not in offices, not in my family. Joni visited often. She'd bring fresh baked bread or jars of preserves, still warm in the kitchen towel she wrapped them in. I never told her what the trust was worth. She just knew she could pay her bills, fix her car without panicking, and take the occasional weekend trip without feeling guilty. She called it finally breathing easy. I called it exactly what she'd earned. The others? They had their own year. Blake's business never launched. He took a second job and started posting grind culture quotes online, like that would make up for his bank account bleeding out. Janine canceled her Italy trip. Twice. She made some vague social media post about unexpected life changes before going quiet for a while. Tom's audit didn't end in disaster, but it ate into his savings so deeply he sold the truck he'd been so proud of. Marie never did get into house flipping. The properties she wanted were off the market before she could make an offer, and she muttered to someone who muttered to someone else that she must have bad luck lately. My mother, she stopped asking about me directly. The last time my name came up in conversation at all, it was to someone else in the family who told her, "I think Mara's fine, but she keeps to herself now." That stung her more than anything I could have said. I had taken nothing from them. They hadn't already chosen to give me distance, silence, absence. I just returned it with interest. Some people think revenge has to be loud to be satisfying. They're wrong. The quiet kind is better. It doesn't give them a moment to fight back. No scene to point at and say, "See, this is why." Instead, it's an empty chair at every table they thought you'd sit at forever. It's the long pause when your name comes up because no one really knows where you are or how you're doing. It's knowing they burned a bridge and you never even bothered to rebuild it. And me? I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the way I had been. What replaced it was cleaner, calmer. I had chosen exactly who deserved my time, my effort, and my protection. Joni was the only one who passed both tests. The rest had written their own endings the moment they said no. 1 year ago, they had the chance to show me what I meant to them when I had nothing. 1 year later, I had everything and they would never touch it. That was the balance. Paid in. Sometimes I walk down to the dock at night, just to listen to the water slap against the wood. The lake is black and still, and the air is so quiet, I can hear my own breathing. That's when it hits me the hardest, the difference between this life and the one I had before. Back then, I was everyone's backup plan. The one they called when they needed a ride at midnight, a place to crash, or a loan to get them through the month. It didn't matter if I was working 2 shifts back to back, or deciding whether to pay the phone bill, or buy groceries. If they wanted something, they asked, and I gave. When I needed something, they didn't just disappear. They made me feel wrong for asking in the first place. Like my need was some kind of weakness they were too strong to have. That lottery ticket didn't just change my bank account, it changed the math of my life. Before, I had been working with deficits, too little money, too little time, too little trust left to give. After, I had a surplus. And with surplus comes choice. I chose Joni. She was the only one who showed up when she thought I had nothing to offer but myself. She passed the test twice. And because of that, she'll never have to worry again. The others, they'll live with what they gave me. Nothing. No more rides, no more loans, no more answers to calls that only come when someone's in trouble. No second chances. I've heard through whispers and half-baked gossip that some of them think I'm still struggling, that I must have gone under after losing my job. I've let those rumors live. I've fed them by staying invisible, by never posting anything, by never being where they expect me to be. Let them think I'm scraping by. It's easier that way, for me and for the lesson. Because if I've learned anything this past year, it's that real revenge isn't in shouting, or in proving yourself, or in flashing what you've got. Real revenge is letting people sit with the knowledge that they failed you when it mattered most, and then making sure they never get another chance to succeed. $84 million. I could have given each of them more than they'd make in a lifetime. I could have wiped out their debts, set up their kids, bought them houses, but money doesn't erase the moment someone looked at you and decided you weren't worth helping. I don't hate them. Hate would mean I still cared. I don't even think about them most days. But every so often, I picture that dinner table. The flicker of candles, the rustle of envelopes opening. The shift in the air when they realized exactly what I was showing them. That's the part I keep. I've paid the balance in full. And for the rest of my life, I'll collect the quiet interest.